So getting into our final video on Blue Marvel, we pick up now with the fallout of Anti-Man's attack on Brashear and Connor's subsequent desire to destroy all life in the world. What Graveau does here is actually really cool. Where the actions of Connor Sims were largely depicted as being in the realm of your average stand-in villain with his motives touched on, the final issue provides some valuable insight into his character. What we're told is that in his mind, Connor is not insane and instead is doing what's best for humanity. In truth, this is almost indicative of the argument of the Watchmen comics when Ozymandias claimed that destroying the major cities of the world would force humanity to work together. Where Sims seeks the outright destruction of all things, the motives behind their actions remain the same, and that the actions of humanity in years past, whether it be the Holocaust under Hitler or the ethnic cleansings under Joseph Stalin, humanity has turned a blind eye to the suffering of its own people and in turn, demonstrated that it doesn't have the right to exist anymore. From here, we switch to the Avengers Tower with Reed, Stark, Brashear, Ares, and Carol Danvers as they watch the events unfold. Within the section of this story, Graveau depicts a battle on two fronts. The first is with Connor Sims using his power to spark atomic explosions in major cities around the world, but the second is the infighting within the ranks of the Avengers. What I mean here is that Stark, Reed, and Pym were under the belief that Brashear's power could have been enough to overcome Sims, but the conflict at the end of the last issue proved that this was not the case. Through some measure which can only be assumed as a result of Sims bathing in antimatter energy, his power has greatly increased to the point that sheer force cannot bring him down. Now Graveau takes this opportunity to demonstrate both the intelligence of Brashear, but to also focus on the matter at hand regarding Brashear's belief that no one else understands Sims the way that he does. The case that Blue Marvel makes here is that because the power of Sims and himself are essentially the same, Adam wants to sync his energy with Sims and let out a massive amount of positive energy. If this hypothesis is correct, the chain reaction would cause the antimatter energy of Sims to come into contact with the positive matter energy let off by Brashear. What this means is that because the power of Anti-Man is largely tied into antimatter energy, it would be like two trains colliding into one another. The result is that the energy let off by Brashear would be destroyed, but so would Anti-Man. However, for Reed, the potential explosion of this magnitude could eradicate the Earth completely, but because Brashear sees this as a risk worth taking, this puts him in direct conflict with the Avengers team and the Fantastic Four. Now, if I were to be honest here, I would make the case that at this moment, this is less about storytelling and more about giving us a chance to see Blue Marvel fight the Avengers, which isn't really something I'm against. The reason why is that from the time his character first appeared, Graveau had basically provided us with the belief that Brashear's power was incredible in scale. And so I had really been looking forward to the idea of him facing off against the Avengers and more specifically, the Sentry. Now in terms of the story, from the point of Brashear, his argument isn't that the Avengers are incapable, his argument is that he is the only person who truly is aware of what Anti-Man is capable of since he views himself as the foremost authority on antimatter energy on Earth. Now something I'd like you to notice here is that this is a vast amount of arrogance on Brashear's part. While he is extremely intelligent, I would make the argument that his experience in dealing with people has put him in a cynical mindset regarding the rest of society. In essence, he's walking a knife's edge and his view of what it means to be a superhero seems to be the only thing that separates him from Sims in terms of their personal goals. This is compounded on by the fact that when the Avengers arrive, he simply refuses to listen to their case. By their own charter, the Avengers exist as the mightiest superheroes on Earth, both in terms of abilities and bravery, and so their very existence serves to safeguard the planet. The fact that Brashear refuses to listen to their side of things seems to indicate that for him, stopping Sims is more of an obsession than carrying out the role of ensuring the safety of the planet's occupants. Now something that I really enjoy during Brashear's fight with the Sentry following his defeat of the rest of the team is that Graveau throws the Sentry's own experience into the fray. What I mean here is that when Robert Reynolds first showed up in Marvel Comics, he was quite literally a man suffering from multiple personality disorder, where he only had two aspects of himself in that he had the good side of Reynolds and the evil Void. His character had spent years hiding from himself and even went as far as to create a piece of machinery that constantly wiped his existence from the minds of the Earth's population. When his character was rolled over into the main Marvel universe during the story Who is the Sentry under the New Avengers, the focal point of his character was his attempt to effectively hide away from the world and blame everyone else for his inability to control the Void. And so as the two fight, the true beliefs of Brashear finally make their way out. What Graveau tells us is that the excuses of wanting to save the world or stopping Sims are all just a mask, and the true motives of Brashear lie in the fact that he resented being asked to step down by President Kennedy. He also resented being told that he couldn't be a superhero because of the color of his skin, and he hated the fact that even after acquiescing to the demands of the US government, he was still treated like a criminal because of something that he couldn't control. Now this is stupendously important because what this does is provide humanity to Brashear. Stepping away from this comic for a second and into the real world, we've all experienced instances where we were made to walk away from the things that we loved. Sometimes this was due to the inevitability of growing up, and other times it was due to circumstances outside of our control. But the fact remains that even if only in this moment, we can truly identify with Brashear on a personal level, more so than we ever could before. And so as the battle rages on between Reynolds and Brashear, Graveau gives us the epitome of his strength level when Blue Marvel knocks the Sentry through the atmosphere and into orbit with a single punch. To put this into perspective, this would be like Brashear attacking the Hulk in his angriest form and sending him into space with one hit. What's also really cool is that this moment does not go unnoticed by the rest of the Avengers. With Wonder Man commenting that he's never seen anything like this before, Stark takes the opportunity to plead with Brashear that even if he's right, there's no guarantee that his plan to combat Connor would be successful without destroying the planet. While this moment seems a little unnecessary in that the situation is dire and the Avengers should go for any chance that they have to ensure the protection of the planet, in truth, this choice right here in terms of whether they ally themselves with Brashear or not is what makes the Avengers heroes, and that they're unwilling to put the planet at risk on a gamble. Furthermore, with Robert Reynolds returning from space and mustering up all the power he has, he's finally able to subdue Blue Marvel by hitting him with every ounce of strength in his body. Where Reynolds is successful and able to knock Brashear out, the fact remains that while all of this has been happening, Ant-Man has been getting stronger, wiping out major cities across the globe, and making his way to New York. From here, we transition to the Baxter Building. With Reed Stark, Carol Danvers, Robert Reynolds, She-Hulk, Ares, and Wonder Man assembling, what we're told is that because Connor Sims feeds off the energy of antimatter, while he's been on this planet, a portal has been slowly opening and growing wider, leading to the antimatter universe. As a result, these antimatter particles have been meeting the positive matter particles in the main Marvel universe, and if left unchecked, will lead to a chain reaction of destruction that will wipe out all things in existence. In addition to this, because Brashear refused to listen to the Avengers, Susan Storm had brought in the one person whom Brashear would probably listen to, his wife. However, before Candice can speak with Adam, the city of New York is met with the arrival of Connor Sims. Bringing a series of antimatter storms with him, the Fantastic Four and the Avengers depart in order to attempt to save the city. And so during this time, the story shifts its focus to Adam, Brashear, and Candice, which provides us with a moment of importance between the two. Where Brashear initially tries to leave the scene before Candice can talk to him, the reason for this is due to the fact that he hasn't quite forgiven her for the betrayal of learning that their entire marriage was a lie. And so what Graveau does is give us a kind of reconciling of sorts between Brashear and Candice. What Candice says is that after taking some time to think about everything that's been happening, that Brashear isn't really mad at her as much as he's mad at himself. The reason why is because when he moved away from being the Blue Marvel at the request of the president, his logic was rooted more in fear than anything else. What I mean here is that the world wasn't ready for an African American to have the power to openly defy the government without fear of recourse. People would have lashed out in anger at seeing things change, and the result would be that Brashear himself would likely have chosen sides after being caught up in it all. Where Brashear recognizes that he could have been an inspiration to the world, he instead chose to hide from it. Now this is actually a pretty big moment for Brashear, and the reason why is because within the context of this story, he's openly admitting to his wife that his decision to remain hidden from the world despite his better judgment was a reflection of cowardice, not bravery, which is something superheroes should be. And so Candice assuages his concern in reaffirming Brashear that the man that she knows is not the man Brashear believes himself to be. While his one act could be considered cowardly by some, the racism he endured in his life and the method in which he chose to handle it by largely walking away demonstrated a kind of bravery rarely seen by others, and that most would have fought at the first sign of offense. And so after reconciling, Brashear parts company with Candice in an effort to assist the Avengers. Now this is something I'd like you to keep in the back of your head because Candice will play a pivotal role in closing out the lingering plot threads at the end of this story. But transitioning to the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, the story comes to in a sort of Blue Marvel saves the day scenario. What I mean here is that regarding his past and the previous actions of society, Blue Marvel himself is largely at peace and that he's completely ready to embrace all facets of who he is regarding his powers and intelligence. With Janet Van Dyne and Hank Pym doing what they can to rescue the citizens of New York from the raging battle between the Avengers and the Fantastic Four against Ant-Man, Blue Marvel appears denouncing Connor's claims of ending all life for the benefit of mankind. Using his vast strength and the opportunity granted by his sudden appearance taking Connor by surprise, Blue Marvel quite literally knocks him through a building and out of the conflict. Now this moment is again particularly important in that Blue Marvel asks for the trust of the Avengers, but is also willing to trust them in turn. The reason why this is significant is because again, this highlights the dramatic change in Brashear's view of the world and himself. By extending a willingness to trust, he's acknowledging that the world has changed and that he no longer views himself as the grudging protector of humanity, but a willing leader for society. With this in mind, Tony Stark grants Brashear the opportunity to lead the offense against Anti-Man. Using his knowledge of theoretical physics and Connor's ties to the antimatter particles, the intention of Blue Marvel is to create a cyclotron. Now, to provide a little explanation here, a cyclotron can best be compared to a tornado on the subatomic scale. The intention of Brashear is to basically create a whirlwind effect which will scatter the already destabilized molecules of Connor and then charge him with positive energy at the right moment. In simple English, Blue Marvel is going to have Carol Danvers fly around the top of Connor as fast as she can in a clockwise position, have Iron Man fly around the bottom of Connor as fast as he can in a counterclockwise position, while both individuals blast him with energy. At the same time, She-Hulk will hit Connor as hard as she can, requiring him to expend his energy to withstand her attacks, and as a final piece of the puzzle, Sentry and Brashear will attack Connor by flying into orbit and back down to Earth as fast as possible. And so with all the pieces in place and everyone doing their part, while Connor's distracted, Brashear lets off a massive amount of positive energy under the hope of literally scattering the molecules of Anti-Man and completely disintegrating him. However, despite his best efforts, the plan proves to be a failure, with Anti-Man maintaining himself due to his fast energies that he possesses. Now, in this portion of the story right now, the power of Anti-Man possesses an astronomical amount of power, and in truth, he could probably hold his own against Galactus. And so the battle isn't so much about physically fighting anymore as it is about Brashear using his knowledge of science to outclass Sims. During the conflict though, Candice comes to the side of Adam in an effort to ensure his survival through the battle. As a result, when Blue Marvel is attacked by Anti-Man with a blast of energy, it's temporarily absorbed by Adam, but because it's too much for him to handle, the excess energy is expelled from his body and torches Candice. Now, the death of Candice is an extremely important part of this story in that this is the final straw for Brashear. For his character, Candice was the last link tying him to his life before, but despite the problems that they faced, he still loved her. However, seeing his wife killed as a result of the actions of Sims has thrown the nature of Connor into sharp relief in the sense that Brashear now recognizes that his former friend cannot be reasoned with, and that his insanity now dominates the mind of Anti-Man. This sentiment becomes evident when Adam begins attacking Anti-Man with every ounce of energy that he has. During this time, he tells Connor that he tried to reason with him to help him see that the world was changing, and people were better than they used to be and worth saving. But because Connor refused to see reason and only intended to satisfy his drive to end all life based on a wrongly held belief, the only option left to Brashear was to kill him. And so flying into the depths of space, Brashear completely cuts loose for the first time in the story by expelling all of his energy due to not having to worry about saving the planet. Releasing all of his power at one time, the plan to kill Connor comes to fruition when his atoms are dispersed across the cosmos and he simply ceases to be. Now, picking up 1 week later, the events of the story change to Brashear visiting the grave of Candice. Receiving a visit from Tony Stark, what Graveau does is establish that the thoughts of Brashear regarding his past, the life he led, and the way he was treated are fully behind him. Where he acknowledges that he was previously angry at his wife for deceiving him and spending so many years lying about her true role in his life, Brashear also realizes that during that period of time, the courage displayed in Candice marrying a black man was astounding in and of itself. What I mean here is that during the 1960s, in the eyes of some Americans, the worst offense a white person could commit was marrying and procreating with an African American. As such, Brashear realizes that the actions of Candice quite literally put her life in danger, and that if someone was extreme enough in their racism, they would have sought her out and attempted to kill her for her actions. And so as a discussion between the two comes to an end and the story begins to wind down, Stark officially offers Brashear a place among the ranks of the Avengers. Now, where Adam doesn't outright turn down the offer, he does acknowledge that there is at least some part of him that needs to learn to adapt to a new way of life outside the mindset of his belief in constant racism. To this end, after returning home, he opens a package left to him by Candice prior to her death, and after opening it, finds a uniform that she had made for him with a message encouraging Adam to give the world a chance and to take each person as they are, rather than allowing his past to dictate his future. With that being said, we're going to bring this video to an end, and I really hope you guys enjoyed the Blue Marvel series. Post a comment below and let me know what you guys thought, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.